I know it's always tedious while we fool with the... Okay, can you hear me now?
No, maybe now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, so the challenge is, what is the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching? Tathagata being the Buddha. And what is the meaning of this whole tradition? What is its value to us? We don't want to misunderstand what the teachings imply. So it's not just a course in a university, it's a way of life. And we learn a way of life by living it day by day in all the different circumstances and kind of exploring the different aspects and refining our intelligence in relation to it. Really learning. What is learning? Learning is, it's only of use if it is lived, if it informs us to be skillful, kind. I mean, these are some of the values of the Buddha way. Kind and accurate, helpful. As opposed to not kind, not helpful. And we all kind of experience a liberal combination of all of that in our own experience, in our own way, in our own behavior, and also definitely in the world. So yesterday we had a board retreat, and we do that each year to look at how we're doing as a Sangha, and Sangha is the community of people who practice together. How we're doing in realizing the Buddha way and helping others uncover it and discover it and use it, making it more useful, attending to the things that get in the way of people really being able to receive the Dharma and put it into practice in their own life, in your own life, in my own life. And every year, we identify some things that we haven't particularly zeroed in on. So this year, we were looking at specifically, it turned out, we didn't intend this specifically, but this is what turned out, to look at how do we market ourselves, to use a crude term. But, how do we make Dharma more available? Because there are a lot of people who don't even know we're here. And they don't know what the Dharma is. They haven't heard about it. I'm always so amazed if somebody says, what's Zen? It's like, really? But of course, it's been my life for many, many years. So it's hard to believe that the whole world doesn't know about it, right? So I wanted to, first of all, read you our mission statement. So I'm going to look through some of the points that we came up with yesterday that I thought were really worth bringing to the whole Sangha. This is our mission statement. Sangha Jewel Zen Center is a diverse group of Zen practitioners dedicated to embodying the Buddha's ancient teaching in modern times. Our practice emphasizes the Sangha as the soil that supports and nourishes the seeds of our awake mind and heart, so that we may recognize the view and live with wisdom, kindness, and a wide awareness of the interdependent functioning of all living beings. We welcome and affirm anyone looking for this way of life and cultivation. So we don't want to just be tucked away in our comfortable little perch here. One of the basic teachings in Zen is we discover our perches. And if we are perched and clinging to a perch, very often that's the source of a lot of trouble, because everything changes all the time, and our perches change. So one of the, every fall, we contact all of our members and see how they think we're doing and how it's working for them as a way to inform us about what we're going to start really looking more into. And one of the things that very naturally came up this time in members' response was, because we've had assistant teachers here, Soten and Shanae, who've been just lovely for a year, and now they've moved to their next place of practice. So we're back to me as the head teacher, and then we have a number of elders who are taking on teaching roles. So the question was, how do we raise up teachers? Where do teachers come from? The tradition of Zen comes from India to China to Japan, and those were all monastically organized institutions that trained and maintained the Dharma. We have a few in this country, but very few, and that's not the way the Dharma is going to be carried forth. Instead, it's going to come out of groups like ours, which are householder sanghas. And how do we practice as fully and deeply and effectively in a householder way of life that you can do when you're in a monastery? Because in a monastery, you live there. So every moment has reference to being present, being of use, putting the well-being of the entire group forward, and it helps us recognize how self-cherishing we can be, not in a critical way, just observing. Because the heart of this practice is observation and investigation. We don't have to believe anything. There are teachings which are prompts for reflection and investigation, but it's not like a catechism. In a monastery, every moment of the day, you meditate a lot in the morning, a lot in the evening, at the end of the afternoon. All of the work is samu, so it's all in the context of doing just this one thing wholeheartedly. So everything about the Sangha in a monastery keeps pointing you back to this present moment. And there's so much, and everybody there living together, rubbing up against each other, which is what the real challenge of living in a monastery is about. That's the real teaching. And we certainly have the same thing in our ordinary life. Maybe a little bit less intensely, or maybe not. So what do we do if we're going to live a way of life? What's involved with that? And how do we bring along teachers? Did I just drop this? Something just go off?
Did the battery die?
I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, something changed. Oh no, now it's back on. The screen falls over, the battery goes off. See, I mean, this is really important to recognize.
Yeah. It must be dead because it turned off again. So some spirit is trying to sabotage you.
Okay, well, I'm not taking any of this personally. But anybody who can't hear, please move much closer, and I'll try to speak loudly. Okay, so householder practice. How do we raise up teachers? Because it's not like getting a PhD, which is pretty hard anyway. I mean, the thing about a PhD is it's maximum 7 years, and there's all kinds of what are they called? Milestones you have to go through. You have to write a book and defend your views, and master a whole quantity of material that has historically been developed in that field. That's similar to here, but how do we do that? We're not in school. How do we learn about this tradition, which is vast? It's very old and it's very broad. It's come through a lot of different cultures. There's in this way that is outside words and letters. There's infinite written sources. There's so much has been said about this practice that is outside of words, right? So how do we become mature in the Dharma and really master the broad and deep and all-inclusive view that the Dharma suggests is available to any of us if we're willing to really apply ourselves. And it's hard if you're working or raising a family to do the kind of intensive practice that automatically, if you're in a monastery, you do a sesshin a retreat every month, usually, at least one, and all kinds of workshops. So we've been developing over the course of time, and you know, this sangha has been together since 1992. I'm the only one who's been here the whole time, and there are a few who've been here much of the time, but we've been developing a way of teaching and providing insight into the depth of the Dharma offerings and the yeah. So I just wanted to reflect a bit on the path that any of us go through. So when I began in 1972, I began with TM. Maybe a few of you were part of that movement. And I did my mantra practice for 3 years, but it was very unsatisfying, so much so that I didn't really develop a regular daily practice. I mean, it was intermittent. It wasn't interesting. It didn't give me anything for my mind to grab onto. And then in 1975, I started sitting at University of Washington in the art room with a group of householder people, and that was great because this group of people was so wonderful to be with, and we did this practice every Wednesday night. We got together, and then once a year we'd do a retreat, a sesshin, and would have a visiting monk who was the head of meditation training at Eiheiji Temple, which is a major Japanese Soto Zen temple. He would come and lead the retreat, and it was hell. I couldn't believe, the first retreat I did, I could not believe that I had said I was going to do this. But they were all my friends, and everybody was like looking like, oh yeah, this is great. And you know, the appearance of any of us in meditation is one thing, but the experience is very different. But there was a moment in my very first retreat, there was a moment where it just confirmed, oh, phew. And then that moment passed. But it was enough. It was enough, just a little peak. And in the 10 ox herding pictures, this is represented. That's a series of pictures that show the different stages of practice. And the stages of practice are variously described, and it's important not to think, well, you get to one, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one. Like any human activity, it doesn't work quite that cleanly, but it does describe. So first, there's the seeking. You know, there's a reason why I went to get a mantra in the first place. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I knew I was looking for something other than what I knew. And then spotting it. So you spot the second thing is spotting spotting the ox, or the footprints of the ox. And that might be coming into Sangha and it's like, oh yeah, this is really comfortable and everybody is very friendly and maybe I could relax here and actually learn how to meditate or whatever, But there's something that allows us just to come back. And that's kind of spotting the footprints. And it's also something about spotting something in your own experience that's a little new and that's more open in some way. Sometimes it's a sense of profound relief, restfulness, faith, I don't know. Everybody has their own form of that. And then you spot the ox rushing off into the weeds. and there's something very confirming about that. So this is what we are keeping in mind as we want to offer it through Sangha Zen Center the opportunity for everybody to begin to kind of break into their own path that is confirmed in your own experience. There are a lot of words of encouragement. Many of us have been practicing a long time, and maybe we inspire you or help you feel seen or encouraged. Good. That's one of the functions of Sangha. So the fourth year of sitting with in the art building, Aitken Roshi, Robert Aitken Roshi, who's my first primary teacher. His picture is on the mantle in the founder's room. He came to Seattle and we did a weekend retreat, and then he said there was going to be a 3-month training at the Maui Zendo. So I didn't even think twice. I just signed up and started working 2 jobs so I could afford to go and also not to work when I was there. And then went over there, and that was kind of like a monastic period because we were all living there in this wonderful old, it actually had been a whorehouse during the war. So there were lots of individual rooms, a shared bathroom between them. And we had 4 different retreats during that 3 months. We had classes. We did work, samu, all the time. Got up really early in the morning and went to bed really late, and so experienced the full 24-hour progression of the mind and energy. It was really very, very profound, and it set me on my cushion. And that was it. It really deepened my practice, and I got a look at what this practice was all about. It wasn't just going Wednesday nights to sit with my friends. It was, it's a life, it's a way of life. And so that in the 10 ox-urban pictures is like catching the ox. And I didn't want to let go. I wanted to stay with it. And when I came back, Genki Roshi was here. His picture is on the altar there. And so we were the Seattle Zen Center, and we began to regularly practice with a teacher who spoke only Japanese. And he is a wonderful artist and a terrific cook, and he was very mysterious, which made me think that practice was all about something that I actually I couldn't understand. I could continue not to understand it because I didn't understand Japanese. There was one of the priests that he ordained who didn't speak Japanese, but he translated his Dharma talks. And that added to the mystery of the whole situation. But it kept going. And then, one thing after another. And then finally, I met Chozen Roshi in 1987 and began to sit with her. So I had done retreats with a number of different teachers, including Thich Nhat Hanh. I did 3 or 4 retreats with him and received precepts from him the first time, the first 5 precepts. And Chogyam Trungpa, Kalu Rinpoche. I looked into all of these different traditions, which was really valuable. And what I kept coming back to was Zen, because it was so simple. And I'm fairly simple in my way of organizing things, so it really was a good match for me. It's maybe not a good match for everybody. I mean, I know it isn't. It just depends on everything. What's important in the Dharma, because there are many forms of practice, Dharma practice, that are deep and complete. We're always told it's very important, once you know you're practicing, to find a teacher. And you want a teacher who you have a bit of an affinity with. Sometimes you have only a little bit of an affinity, but you're in a place where they're the only teacher, and so they're your teacher. Everything is flexible. But it's very helpful to sit with a Sangha also, because it's really hard to maintain a regular practice just on your own. And the fellowship part of practice is a very important part of awakening to the teaching, to the full import of the teaching. Because what we're looking at is our responses to things and people and circumstances. And we're going to have the usual kind of responses in social situations. But the thing about a Sangha is it's not just a social group. We spend long hours in silence together, which is maybe the most intimate way to be together. And we're doing this kind of mysterious practice together, which is a very intimate thing to share. So coming now back to this, and not going on and on too long, but this question of how do we raise up teachers, because that was a question that somebody asked. I mean, a number of people have been worried about that. And since I've been here for the whole thing, I first of all recognize that part of it is we have a coherent Sangha, which is very important. We care about each other, and we want to be beneficial. We want to be friendly in our relationships with people, and we want to handle conflict in a way that leads to wisdom, and with wisdom, with patience, to exercise all of the ingredients of being an awake person. So anybody who's here for any period of time has a job of some sort with us, contributes to the upkeep of the place, may participate in the bodies that decide on, like the board and the program committee and the fundraising committee. And there's potential for endless conflict of views as we work on stuff together. So that's a great place to work on, to become aware of your own relation patterns and see into them in a place where there's a lot of help with it. Because another part of raising up a teacher is you work with a teacher. And Chozen Roshi always says she wants her students to copy her exactly. Well, when I first heard that, I thought, ooh, because I came to her late in my own practice. I had been practicing for quite a while. I wasn't just a babe, coming with nothing going on in relation to the Dharma. But as I go along now, and I just saw her last weekend again, but as I've gone along, I realized, God, she and I are so much alike. Not because I'm copying her, but because our experience has, over the course of time, really paralleled. When you're teaching, you have a lot in common with other people who are teaching, and you have a lot to offer, and you have a lot to learn, especially. The more you teach, the more humble you become necessarily, because you realize the limits of your own skill and insights. And more, the Sangha teaches you, teaches me. I learned so much from the Sangha about myself, about the Dharma. So there's a line that in Aitken Roshi's translation of one of the chants, it says, Sangha relations become complete. I always loved that line. And now I really appreciate the meaning of that, which is that the wisdom mind inheres in all of us, and we help each other. We bring it forth in all kinds of ways through the life of the Sangha. So the more things we do, the more activities we engage in, no matter what they are here, the more we learn from each other about the Dharma, about ourselves. Practicing for a long time is very important if you're going to be teaching, because there aren't perches. You want to really become aware, and we all do as we go, of beliefs that we didn't even realize we had, that we are basing choices on. We just keep seeing more and more and more into what we thought the world was or who we are. That basic teaching of no self. Now, initially, when I heard that teaching, I almost had a picture of going, bing, and disappearing altogether. I had a kind of a Walt Disney cartoon assumption that was the experience. It's been very interesting to explore that, the meaning of that particular teaching. Continuing to penetrate it and penetrate it and penetrate it, especially as I get much older, and we have a silver dragon cohort, and silver dragons are old. We say 60 and above, but it's a state of mind too, as well as body. But that the question of this self and no self becomes more and more poignant. Or if we receive a diagnosis that's pretty dire, it becomes really personal. What is this teaching of no self? If we have a new child, babies, boy, you really start, the self that is not self-cherishing is really called forth, taking care of the little babies, little children. They're great masters because they're also very present. And they're very in the moment, and the needs are very in the moment. So all of the Dharma teachings are right there in the parenting. I always called it Mazen when my kids were little. If I couldn't go to a retreat, I'd tell Chizan, no, I'm doing Mazen this time. So we have these different things that we do here. We have our daily sitting schedule, and some days there are 2 sits. We do group sanzen, one on Thursday nights, where we all get together and do a one-on-one exchange with teacher, and we all are affected and helped by hearing each other's things that we bring forward there in relation to life and practice. We have individual sanzen. We have work roles. We really encourage people to take on some role. There's a lot involved in maintaining a center. And then there are training positions, which are like Shuso, head of Zendo, Tenzo, the main cook. Those are positions that are traditionally given to senior students because they're very demanding. And you really have to give yourself over and have a very clear commitment to the well-being of the group and awareness of how any choice that you make is going to affect everybody's practice. We have one-day retreats. We have a back to basics class, session, so 4 days and 7 day sessions, workshops. We have orientations. So when people are coming along in their practice, they may become part of the group that offers orientation to new people coming. You have to have pretty well be situated in practice to be useful to new people coming in and to be able to address questions. We have Dao Ren, which is a group for people who have received all 16 precepts. And we study, those are 6 full days, 3 weekends during the course of the year, where we study much more thoroughly Dharma texts and teachings. And everybody's called on to make presentations and to facilitate discussion, which is all part of the skill set of a teacher. And it's very wonderful to see how people emerge in the Dao Ren meetings and the discoveries that are made. People discover for themselves, oh, I'm afraid to talk. And then suddenly they make this wonderful presentation and everybody says, thank you, I hadn't realized that. Or that's a different way of looking at it. Or you really have skill with it. I mean, there are so many discoveries there. And then we have the elders who teach the Tuesday night. They facilitate and teach Tuesday nights texts. They also lead the precept classes in preparation for receiving the precepts. Participation in the board, the practice committee, fundraising. We're starting now a children's program. We had three times this year, I forget how many. We want to develop more family practice. That's one thing that came out in our board retreat. But we have limited space, and so it's been a slow process. But we're really working toward that over time. So. At a certain point, it becomes very clear that someone is really functioning like a teacher without any prompting or without a label, without an official position. Their life is very stable. Their Dharma eye is open. I really appreciate what Aitken Roshi used to say. You know, we hear this term enlightenment, which is a very problematic term, and actually only came into general usage, I think, in the 1930s or something. But Aitken Roshi would say, opening the Dharma eye, which is opening the eye of all things are interrelated. Everything is impermanent, and there's no inherent permanent self, right? Any of us can begin to live from that view, which is really so obvious when you regularly have been practicing sitting down, calming down, opening, relaxing, and taking a direct look at whatever all the time. It's just a very it is our natural self that we are restored to. And when somebody really is ongoingly like that, and their life situation is stable, and they have some facility with describing, with meeting people in their issues and being able to encourage and show, kind of help people see how to use the tools of the Dharma in their own moment, their own quandaries, then they are already a teacher. And so we have a number of people in our Sangha who are teachers. They're not officially teachers. We are going to have one of our members receive transmission shortly. And when that term refers to this thing in Zen where the lineage, we are a lineage tradition. And when I received transmission, one of my vows given to my teacher was I would do everything, I would use my life to do everything I could to be sure that the Dharma doesn't die out. Because there's so many forces flooding us with noise and confusion. And that's what gets passed along, and to be willing to take on that responsibility is a way. My Hogan, when I received transmission, apologized. He said, "I'm sorry. I'm putting this on you." And it's traditional because it's a lot. So what I want to point out is it's very true that many members of our Sangha are teachers, but the official has a particular thing about it that makes it a little different. But that question of how do we raise up teachers? We raise up teachers by practicing wholeheartedly and determined to really awaken to our own true path. We have one person who's all awake, who is our sewing master. That's her teaching, you know. Each of us has particular gifts, and that's what we offer in this life. And we become, as we proceed in practice, more and more skillful doing it. So that's the meaning of that word, as I see it. And I hope this addresses any questions you may have had. I might even ask for, is there any question that anybody would like, or a comment you'd like to make before we finish about this? So I wanted to say one more thing. Years ago, maybe it was in 2014, we had a meeting of all those interested in whether we would go ahead with building, our own center, as opposed to just continuing to sit at the yoga center downtown 1 day a week. And one of the questions that was raised, and everybody nodded when the question was raised, was, what is your succession plan? Because we're going to ask people to be giving money our way. We've raised a lot of money to do this, and we will continue to need to do that, to raise money to maintain this place. What is your succession plan? So, you know, we talked about it then, but I thought it's probably a good time to bring that up again so that everybody is clear what our view is, what our vision is. We are going forward. You know, we have a lot of provision made for that, and also with guest teachers, so that people in this Sangha get a chance to experience other people's Dharma. It's really helpful, really, really helpful. And there are wonderful people who are available to come down and teach here too. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope this was useful.